of Epic?
It happened in 2007 officially, but we started cooperating by the end of 2006.
This with Gears of War 1 on PC?
Well, initially Epic basically wanted to really understand what are our capabilities. You know, what is it that people can fly, do very well. So initially we have just done a couple of multiplayer maps for the PC version of Gears of War 1. And then Epic was like, okay, so your artistic team, your art team, and your level designers are good, but we don't know about the programmers. We did a couple of tests, and actually our programmers did a really good job on these. So the idea then was, hey, how about the conversion? It all took about a year, and after that Epic basically said, okay, you are a really good team. What is it that you want to do? And we're like, what? Yeah, tell us, what kind of game do you want to do? So that's how Bulletstorm happened.
I'm assuming that pinning ninjas to walls with stake guns in Painkiller got Epic's attention as just a visceral, fun thing to do.
Yeah, I think so. I remember that when I called Mark Rain to ask for the engine, what I heard was, finally, guys, because for Painkiller we did our own engine, Pain engine. But for the next project, we just decided, you know, it's an arms race. We just couldn't keep up. It's just impossible. Unreal was so advanced at the time. By the time we managed to do what Unreal had, you know, the next iteration of Unreal would have happened. So it was a lost cause. And we thought, okay, there's this great engine. Let's just call these guys and let's just ask for Unreal. And Mark Rain was like, okay, finally, guys, we love you. We know Painkiller. And everybody at Epic played it and liked it, really. So we're really happy that he called us, and that's how we got in touch with Epic.
Yeah. So what were your thoughts moving on to helping out with the Gears of War franchise? Like, what was People Can Fly's initial thoughts about the series?
I can honestly say that my love for Gears is pure. I mean, I loved Gears before we even had the slightest idea that one day we will be a part of Epic. And what I loved about the game was that if there was one word that I could use to describe Gears 1 is the word would be raw. There was some story that was told in the game, but the game was sort of light on storytelling, and a lot was left to your imagination, which is what I absolutely loved. And then there was obviously the brutal combat and very visceral combat, and you really felt like you're there. Obviously, when one day we suddenly got a chance to work on the next iteration of Gears, we were ecstatic.
What are you taking from working on the previous Gears games and Bulletstorm, and what are you applying to Gears of War Judgment?
There's many things. I mean, look, every single game designer, when he plays somebody else's game, he always gets ideas. It's like, either he's jealous, oh my God, this is a great idea, I wish I came up with this one. Or it's, oh, why? I would have done this differently. So obviously, when I played through Gears 1, 2, and 3, I had the same thoughts. Active reload, oh my God, it's so cool. But then this, maybe I would have done this differently. So then one day it's like, okay, show me what you got. If you want to, PCF can do a next Gears of War game. So now I actually have to, step up and really show that we know what we're talking about when we talk about a different approach to Gears. But it's hard to pinpoint particular things. It's just basically everything I have learned as a designer, everything the team has learned as a team. We just used everything that we have learned in our lives, our professional lives, to make this the best game we can do.
What is the exact relationship? What are you guys working on specifically with Judgment?
So Judgment actually has a couple of pillars, and the ones that we are revealing now is Overrun and the campaign. So PCF is heavily involved in both, especially with the campaign. This is something that we have initiated. We have proposed the story, what are the gameplay hooks. Basically everything about the campaign was sort of initiated by People Can Fly, but obviously with heavy involvement from Epic, right? I like to think about it as the best of both worlds. On one hand, we can bring something fresh to the franchise, but on the other hand, you have the original creators making sure that it's still Gears. And with Overrun, it's again something that we have initiated, but right now we are cooperating very closely with the guys here, and we do most of the maps, and we sort of went through the iteration process until we arrived at the point when we thought, okay, we have a solid foundation for Overrun. How can we make it even better? So let's ask the guys that actually have done this 3 times and came up with legendary modes like Horde or the TDM for Gears. And so we're working very closely on Overrun with Epic.
What is People Can Fly's office like in Poland? How is it different than Epic in North Carolina here?
Well, this particular studio is the largest I have ever seen.
Okay.
We are obviously smaller at PCF. The core team in Warsaw, in Poland, is 70 people. What I like about this particular fact is that we have still managed to keep the culture that we had when we were 15 guys in 2002, when we started making Painkiller. I think it was actually like 11 or 12 people.
Okay.
And we still sort of have that. No, not 100% of that, but let's say 90% of that. And that's what I love. We actually are using very sort of like Scrum-like methodology, meaning that the sort of shortest way to describe this is the way you work when it's the crunch time.
Okay.
So everybody's
Scrum is like a way
communicating
that
very closely.
Is a way for designers and developers to communicate, right?
Yes, exactly. This is like, we obviously produce documentation and we have proper communication channels and production and all that, but we believe that the most valuable sort of exchange of information is when people talk to each other. So we have small groups, small task force groups that basically are focused on a particular feature of the game, and this is the first time we've done it actually on Judgment. On Bulletstorm, we use sort of the old school way for producing a game, but we moved on to this more modern methodology, and it's working wonders for us.
Yeah, you brought Bulletstorm again. I love the game. I know a lot of folks at Gameinformer love the game. It didn't sell as well as everyone was hoping. It's been over a year since it came out. It's sort of like a post-mortem on it. Like, how do you feel just in general?
I mean, as for the game itself, I don't think I could be more proud. It's a little bit embarrassing for me because it's like when you have a writer that reads his own book and then cries or laughs, then it's probably not the best sign. But I do like to go to YouTube and just watch a part of Bulletstorm just being played by somebody else. And what is it, how did that particular person approach the gameplay? How creatively they went with the killing. Or even the cinematics, because I still love what Rick Remender has done on the game, as for the story and dialogue. So I am very proud, and we have a really, really good Metacritic score. What I'm seeing right now, after a year and a half, right, since the release of the game, that is becoming this, I'm not sure if cult favorite is the way to describe this, but we were kind of present at various like best of 2011 lists, what obviously made us very happy. Of course, we wish we had sold more, but it's been decent for us, so at least there's that. So again, very, very happy as for how the game turned out, but obviously could be better commercially.
Yeah, and you're talking about watching people play the game and just a different way people are going to experiment and get to know something like Bulletstorm. I mean, you have to be excited to unleash Overrun and watch the different strategies and everything that fans come up with that.
Yeah, I mean, this is the way we approach both, actually, the campaign and Overrun, is that gameplay comes first. There's still a story that's being told in the campaign, and there is context to Overrun. But I do believe that Gears has absolutely excellent, one of the best, so-called core combat loops. And I think that when you just basically expose that gameplay and give it to the players, everybody can have their own moment, their unique play style within that particular feature set. I'm loving when the Overrun is being done for a fairly long time, and every single day there's a surprise. Every single day somebody comes up with something new. So I am extremely excited about that.
So there was a lot of fans of Bulletstorm. They like being able to have the freedom of how they wanted to eviscerate or kill their enemies. And with People Can Fly having greater responsibility with Judgment, can fans of Bulletstorm that weren't necessarily fans of Gears of War look for and find that PCF stamp of freedom of playstyle?
I think so. I think there's stuff that's invisible to us, something that we don't even realize that's there, that's as you call it, PCF's DNA. But I think there's also some stuff that should be pretty obvious. I mean, one of the things is that Painkiller, for example, featured a lot of enemies on screen at the same time. We actually do that for Gears. Now, it was very hard to accomplish because it's still the same Xbox that was there in 2005. It's the same hardware, but we do have a really good programming team and the art team. So we used every trick in the book to make sure that we now can actually feature more enemies on screen than it was previously possible. So I think a certain, frantic kind of gameplay is something that is now available to Gears players too. And we don't do it all the time, of course, because that would be boring. You need to have a proper pacing to the game. But there are situations when, there is a reason why Overrun is called Overrun. And so I think this is an example of the thing that I hope we do well as PCF.
So do you want to do anything besides shooters in the future?
Absolutely, yes. It is actually very hard because once you are successful with a shooter, so initially like we were with Painkiller, then nobody wants anything else from you. So if you say, actually there's this action-adventure game that we really, really want to do, everybody's like, that's very interesting. Do you have any shooters?
Right.
But we definitely want to do it, and we think it's possible. I mean, as much as I love shooters, I would definitely like, and I know the other guys at the studio too, to also go for something else at one point.
You have a specific genre that you would love, or that's close to your heart, that you just love to try to sink your teeth into?
The thing that I am personally very interested in is just the joy of discovery, the joy of exploration, and the transition that happened in me was that, for many years I wanted to tell stories in games, but David Jaffe actually is right when he says, if you really want to do that, write a book, or make a movie. Games are for something else. And now I am very interested in becoming this sort of invisible director. There's still, some pre-designed story elements. There are still some pre-designed story elements in the game, but it's not impulse. It's basically you discover these fragments and you sort of connect them the way you want to, and you have your own unique experiences within that world, just like you have when you play Skyrim, for example. These are the kind of worlds we want to offer, and I'm sure there's going to be some dose of violence in these games, so I count on that. But other than this, we'll see.
What is it with violence in games? Do you have a hunch? I mean, we were talking about horror movies a lot the other night, and just it seems like, is it just in certain people's DNA that just love this stuff? Or
it's human nature. I mean, I actually recently tweeted about that. It's like the first thing that springs to mind when you walk on the beach and you see a sandcastle.
I want to kill it.
You want to kill it. You want to kick it. You want to just jump in there and dance on this castle and just destroy it, right? So it's just human nature. It's just destruction. Can be very satisfying for some reason. I don't overanalyze this. I just know this is something that we really love to do. Even when you look at Mario, it's like dead,
yeah,
right? So maybe there is no guts and blood, but it's still solving problems through violence.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to fight human nature. If it's in our nature, then fine. Let's use games as this sort of entertainment device that calls to your primal instincts.
Cool. Thanks, Adrien. That was great.
Thanks.